This week I've got Heather on the show from Street Group. I know you have, Street and Spectre, so we're going to touch on both of those within the interview. And I'm so excited to have you on as a guest. I've followed your journey for many, many years. So I'm very pleased to have you on. And I want to actually take everybody back to the very beginning and ask you, what surprised you most about when you first started, and did you think you would have the impact you've had in the industry? So a nice easy one as the opener.
So I think it's fair to say that I thought I understood estate agents because both my parents are estate agents, had their separate businesses, so sort of grew up in the industry. And you often hear people say, every agent operates differently and we're all different, we all do things differently. And I think people scoff at that a little bit, but it's true. Every agent operates slightly differently. So that was something I would say surprised me when I joined, moved from what I was doing into this industry, because I did learn very quickly that there are huge differences between the way agents operate, and it's true. So yeah, that was the first part of the question. What was the second part?
Did you think you'd have the impact you've had in the industry?
So when my brother first developed Spectre version 1.1 8 years ago, and I saw it, I was genuinely blown away. Again, because I've spent my entire life, absorbed in this industry. Well, whilst I was a child, and knowing from just my dad's business, which is still going, that there wasn't anything out there like it at the time. I did know, if that sounds awful, doesn't it? But I did know that if we could just show agents what this tool could do,
Yeah.
they would love it, because I knew how much time it was going to save. So yeah, from a Spectre perspective, I had probably a naive amount of like confidence in the product. And
Good.
me and Tom laugh all the time. We laugh and we say, God, we were so naive when we started. We just thought, well, we've built this brilliant product. Agents will obviously sign up for it. And I look back and I think it's really good that we had that naivety, because, we might not have done it if we were fully aware of all the challenges and pitfalls of running a business. But we did it and it
Yes.
worked. So, and yeah, and then with on the street side, we were already in the prop tech world with Spectre, and we were
Yes.
living and breathing it every day, and we were so passionate about prop tech and
Yes.
watching what the incumbent CRM providers were doing, that again, like we didn't take that decision lightly. It was very much a case of, we're only going to invest all this money in building a CRM if we genuinely think we can do it 10 times better than anybody
Mhm.
else. So yeah, it wasn't a decision that you take lightly when you think about how big of a system
Yes.
street.co.uk is now and how many millions go into developing it. Obviously, it's not something that you think, do you know what, let's have a gamble at this.
Personally, I think that eh, if you don't believe in something, you'll never get somebody else to believe in it either. Because if you don't believe in it, how can you expect anyone else? It's a good thing to believe in what you do, and to believe in it so strongly that you believe that it is better than what else is out there, and you believe in it that it will enhance what someone's doing.
Yeah, I mean, it consumes us, me and Tom. It's our lives. It's what we think about 24/7. And obviously, me and Tom, my co-founder, he's also my brother. And our family try and ban us from talking about it outside of work. But it's impossible, because I think, when you run your own business and you've built a product that you do so passionately believe in,
Yep.
it is all consuming all of the time.
Yep.
So yeah, massively believe in what we're doing and where we're going, and the fact that it will make agents' lives easier and
Yep.
happier and less stressful.
I'll plug a book I read many years ago called The Secret. Don't know if you've read it, Heather, or looked into it. It's about the power of believing in something and pulling it towards you. Basically, you have to work towards it, but it's about
Profit
the power.
closely.
The Secret.
Oh, just The Secret. Okay. No, I haven't read
Yeah.
that.
I'll send you the link, but it's about the power of basically believing in something so that things pull towards you. It's kind of like you put it out into the universe so that it helps find you. I mean, you can't just say I want to find £1 million lottery ticket. It's not. It doesn't work like that. It's like you've got to work towards the goal, but you have to believe in it. So that's why I wanted to ask you that question, because I wanted to see what your thoughts were before you started, because you have done such amazing success and had such an amazing impact on the industry, and I wondered if you believed in that from the start, which helped you with that journey throughout, because if you don't believe in something's going to happen, you've got no chance of it happening. That's what I feel. So, Heather, I'm pleased that you had that belief.
Yeah, definitely do.
Good. And on the street and Spectre front, what's new? What's going on at HQ? What can you tell me?
Oh gosh, there's always stuff going on here.
I
I mean,
know.
one of our operating principles, which we do very much live by, is that we move quickly. So we're never standing still. On Spectre, we've got a big announcement to come probably in the next few weeks. Can't tell you
Yeah.
what yet, but just keep your
No.
ears open for that.
Okay.
And we're investing actually really heavily into Spectre this year. So there's some really big things coming by the end of the year, which agents will love. And on street, obviously, we've been focusing a lot of our attentions on the property management and client accounting, which is now ready. So we have over 200 agents who have been using that live for over 6 months with no issues whatsoever. So we'll be very imminently coming out of beta on the letting side, which is very
Yep.
exciting to know. A lot of agents have been desperate for that. So yeah, so it's big things coming this year.
Good. I'm excited. And I wanna ask you on some sort of property predictions from you. Can you give me some?
Property predictions. Gosh, well, there's a lot going on at the moment, isn't there?
There
But
is. There is.
well, I'll give you a prediction that I think is sort of pertinent to the products that we have, because it's something that we survey people about, and I think it's really important, which is changing consumer expectations within property.
Okay.
So I think us, and I say us as estate agents, have sort of got away with not meeting consumer expectations in terms of how they want to communicate with their agent for quite a while. So, if you pick an average agent on an average street, typically the way that they will communicate with their clients is by phone calls and emails. And naturally, that's often quite a responsive way to deal with people. Um, and I think consumer expectations are shifting so quickly in terms of being able to, or wanting to do things from their mobile phone
Mhm.
instantly, 24/7 access, self-serve. And the frustration that people get when they don't have that is
Mhm.
growing and growing. And we did a huge survey recently, and it actually supported that right up to the oldest age category, which actually wasn't that old because it was over 65, but still, over 80% of people in the over 65 category said that they would have a preference for choosing an estate agent that offered an app. So things like
Mhm.
that. And how many estate agents have apps? Not that many. Foxtons have just announced that they've got this moving app. Um,
Mhm.
and they'll have invested probably very heavily into that. And that is what Street offers any
Mhm.
agent, the ability for them to offer their clients access through an app, that transparency,
Mhm.
that immediate self-serve, the visibility on what's going on, all that stuff that consumers crave. So I think
Mhm.
now that Foxtons have done it themselves, and consumer expectations are shifting quite heavily, and we're noticing more and more agents offer the ability to book
Mhm.
an evaluation straight from the website, things like that. I think we'll see a very big shift very quickly, and the ones that don't adopt that, the agents that don't adopt that functionality and sort of start being a little bit more tech forward, will feel the
Mhm.
pain of it quicker
Yep.
than I imagine that we all think at the moment.
I think that's a great prediction. Do you know what? As you were saying that, me and my wife, we remortgaged the other day, end of term remortgage time. So we we used a solicitor who had a portal, and do you know how easy it was having a portal that tells you what's green, what's red, what's outstanding, what I need to do, messages through it, keeps it all in one place. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
It made it so much easier, and and this is the first time we've had the luxury of having one of them. And I thought, you know what, this is what everybody needs with when you've got stuff like this happening with information.
Yeah, it's really true. So we produce, from a street perspective, what we call a B2C brochure. So a brochure for agents that they can brand up themselves, or we can do it for them. That explains the functionality that that person would get if they chose that agent through Street. They obviously don't need to say it's Street
Hmm.
technology. As far as that vendor or potential vendor is concerned, it's that agent's technology,
Hmm.
and that's the way we want it to be. Um, so we provide these brochures to say, look, you can leave these behind at valuations or whatever. And the demand for those brochures are going through the roof because agents saying, actually, this is really helping and it's really resonating and it's being mentioned when we get instructed. So we're like, happy days, you know, here you go. But I think that, you know, is exactly what I'm saying about more and more vendors saying, like, make my move easy for me, give me
Yes.
access to stuff, let me, you know, accept viewings via a push notification on my phone, you know, let me view what. So we've done property information questionnaires through the app so that they can do everything from their phone. And it is definitely resonating. And one of the things
100%.
that astounds me, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant now, but one of the things that astounds me, and it backed up recently by my brother, my little brother, not the one I've set up this business with, has put his house on the market. And I asked him how he chose who his agents were, and he was like, "Oh, well, I just went on websites and booked the valuation through the website." And I was thinking, yeah, but there'll have been loads of agents that don't allow you to do that. And he was like, yeah, but I don't really want to speak to them on the phone. And he's not even that young. How many people are doing that?
Yes.
And then you have to ask yourself the question, how many agents don't have the functionality to allow people to do that? So they spend all this money on beautiful websites, which obviously they should absolutely do. And they spend all this money driving people to the website. And somebody gets there, they want to book an evaluation. They get to book evaluation and it's a form. And they think, well, I'm not filling that out. So if you manage to get somebody on your website who wants to book an evaluation with you, let them. It's
Yes.
mad that, you
Yeah.
know, 2024, we're still making it painful for people to book an evaluation. One big agent we've got on the street actually has got 6 branches, and over 30% of all of his valuations are now booked via his website, via the street valuation booker.
Fantastic. I think
Yeah.
that's a hot tip there, Heather, for agents. If you do nothing else or take nothing else away from this, that's a easy thing to add in.
Yeah, if you're making people fill out forms on your website to book a valuation, there is an actual stat out there that I don't have off the top of my head, but with every line on a form, the drop off is something like 25%. So if you imagine anybody who's actually filled out that form, look at how many fields you've got, work backwards, and how you work out how many people will have gone on that page, started, and then not finished it.
Mhm. Cracking. And there we go. That's our hot tip. So, Heather, I want to ask you about stats. And I know you have interesting stats from the Spectre side. So, did you bring any? Can you share any? Over
I
to you.
did. You did ask me for this, so I've got some market stats and I've got some Spectre stats. So I'll start with the Spectre stats. So interestingly, the 2 most powerful triggers this year in terms of what has led to instructions are the 3-month and 6-month after withdrawal triggers, which we call the Vault Inspector. And I think that's just, you know, people got fed up with the market last year, took it off, and are now coming back. So, you know, my top tip to agents is don't forget about the people that withdrew last year. For every £78 spent on what we call 2020s, which a lot of agents will call sold in your road, because Inspector uses AI to pick which properties you should write to. On average, for every £78 spent, you'll get a success inspector on that, which I think is pretty cool.
That is.
And also, final one off with so far this year, we're finding that the 6-week after reduction trigger is 50% more efficient than writing to people on price reduction. So again, for those Spectre clients out there, make sure that if you're going to send one or the other, turn off your reduction one and send it 6 weeks following a reduction, or send it on both. So yeah, those are some Spectre stats. In terms of the market, I think agents are, you know, quite aware of what's going on in the market at the moment, but days it's taking to get properties sold, as in sold subject to contract, is around 7% higher than this time last year. So it is taking a little bit longer to sell. And year to date, new listings and sold subject to contract are higher than last year, but we have seen a bit of a dip in May. So yeah, watch this space. And final one on the market, reductions are still at an all-time high, which says to me that there's a little bit of work. There's a little bit of an expectation management, I think, on price with vendors, where you sort of have to get them to a realistic price, which is a little bit challenging at the moment, hence why they're going on a slightly higher price, and then there's so many properties being reduced.
Interesting, Heather. Thanks for bringing them to the podcast. I do appreciate it. And there's some stats for you, audience, and I want to finish on some semi quick fire questions about you. So first off, what have you learned from being in this field that people should know? I've got a thinker for you.
Yeah. One of the big things that I have learned is that as an estate agent, you have to always be ahead of the person next door.
Mhm.
So you're I think it's really challenging as estate agent, particularly as often they're physically next door, and you often got what, 10 to 20 minutes on evaluation to differentiate yourself. So I have learned that I think it's absolutely imperative for agents to always be thinking of themselves as innovators, because they have to be to keep themselves ahead. But also, I would, my sort of message to agents on that would be, pick suppliers who will do that for you. There is no point picking a supplier who's going to put you years behind what your competitor next door is doing.
Yep.
And I think agents have enormous choice when it comes to prop tech suppliers. But if I was an agent, and I think this is something that we've learned so much over the last 8 years, that we've embedded it in our operating principles, is that we have to innovate on behalf of agents, because the agents that use our product, Spectre and Street, need to trust that we will always keep them ahead of what their competitor next door is doing. And we live by that in this organization, hence why one of our operating principles is move quickly. Because if we don't move quickly, and the software that our clients use is somehow falls behind what another product could do, then we're not doing our job for our clients, and they need to trust that we're doing that on their behalf. And they can innovate in the estate agency world, and
Mhm.
we will innovate on with the tech that they're using. And I think that's a big thing that I've learned, is that you have to move quickly in this industry, because it is so imperative for agents.
Yes, it is. I think that's a fantastic piece of advice. And my final question for you is, who is the most influential person in your life, and how did they impact you?
Well, I'm going to have to go with my parents here, aren't I?
Yep.
Yeah, well, they were both estate agents, both very entrepreneurial, both had their own estate agency businesses. Um, they actually had an estate agency together, and then they got divorced, and then they had separate estate agents, which was a really nice family dynamic. But obviously, that's shaped everything that I've done. And
Mhm.
seeing, your two parents set up, their own businesses, and do you know what? Work their asses off, like really
Mhm.
graft for so long. I think firstly gave me and Tom a very good work ethic. Secondly, gave us the entire foundation that we've got in this industry, which we'd be nowhere without that, would we? Um, but thirdly, I think, giving my mum a particular shout out. She was a mum of 3 children, set up her own business, somehow balanced it all.
Mhm.
And I often think, that saying, you have to see it to want to be it. I'm sure the saying is
Yep.
actually much more catchy than that. Uh, sometimes when people say, God, was it scary setting up your own business? It wasn't, because I always had this role model of my mum did it. I was under her desk when I think I was about 4 weeks old, and she just cracked on, and it never seemed scary to her. And because I'd had that role model, it never seemed scary to me. It seemed very natural. So yeah, I have to give a shout out to both parents for
Brilliant.
giving us the foundation, and obviously inspiring us to set up our own business, I suppose.
I think that's a lovely way to end the show. I don't think we could
Cheers.
end on a much nicer note. So, on that note, thank you so much, Heather. I really, really appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm very grateful.
Cheers, Lee. Thanks for having me, and yeah, thanks for everything that you do on this sort of stuff. I'm sure loads of people get a lot from it.
Thank you.
Not on this particular episode, but in general.
Thanks, Heather.
Cheers, Lee. Thanks. Bye.